Good morning and welcome to the show. We hope you are well. If you're off on your midterm break or minding children or whatever the case may be, hope you're having a good week and that you're able to get out and about in between those showers. In a little while we're going to be talking to Tammy Darcy from the Shona project about the Caroline Flack tragic death over the weekend and social media. Tom Doorley is going to be talking to his food critic about what makes the best breakfast in Ireland. We're also going to be talking to Vicky Brown, a PhD researcher. Did you know that Dunmore East is one of the top 5 places in the country with people from England? And she wants to hear from people from England that would have had experiences and why they've moved to Dunmore, why they've moved to Waterford, and let us know about that. And also going to be talking to Mary O'Dwyer. She is a lady that's got to do with some issues of, knitting. So we'll be talking about that later. Now, firstly, I am going to talk to Mary and Anne, and they're here with me with Jim Griffin. Mary and Anne, not your real first names. I know you want to maintain your, I suppose, anonymity in some respects regarding an incident, and it's on the front page of the News and Star. And go and support your local papers, News and Star and the Munster Express. And Mary, good morning. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Hello, Anne. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Jim Griffin, how's it going?
Good morning, Damien.
Thanks very much for coming into us. Mary, tell us a little bit about Carrickfearish. People that don't know it, it's an area, I suppose, recently developed in the last 10 years, I suppose, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've only been living there in the past 10 years. Do you know, ordinarily, like most of the time, it's a great place to live. You know, There's like
a new school up there.
New school.
New library.
There's the library. There's after school programs after coming up at breakfast club. You know, in the summertime, they run summer camps. It's a lovely place. You know, you can walk your dog. It's a great place to live, and I really like living there.
Yeah. So it's just on the outskirts of Waterford City as the city expands, and it's like I suppose a new suburb, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, definitely trying to build it up a little bit more.
And like a community spirit
with the bus schedules, you know, trying to make it more accessible. So,
is there a combination of houses and apartments there?
There is, yeah. There's a good few apartments, houses. Yeah.
So you live in the area, and tell me what happened.
For me, what happened was on Friday, the doorbell rang, and my daughter and her little friend, who I mind on a Friday, I opened the door and there was just screams coming out of her little friend. And I think every parent knows what a pain scream is. You know, whether you're 11 years old or you're 11 weeks old, a pain scream is a pain scream. So for me,
high-pitched screeching,
scream, agony. And what I had heard was that the little girl, don't want to name her name, but that what I had heard was she's been shot. So considering what had happened on that road 6 weeks ago, obviously I panicked. Got the girls inside, got them upstairs. The little girl was hysterical. She was holding her ear. So I got her hand down. My little girl it was like she started to panic. She was almost hyperventilating. I got the hand off the ear. It was red and inflamed. And I said, okay, tell me what's after happening. And they said that they were walking home from school and that a bunch of 4 kids came across, stood in front of them. My little girl, Holly, she said that first they put the gun to her face, and I think adrenaline happened, you know, the fight or flight. And she obviously, I'm so proud of her, she chose to fight, whereas I would be a flight. And she said she just screamed. She said she felt it from her toes, she felt it from her knees, from her chest, and she just kept screaming, go away, go away, go away. So at that point, she said the gun lodged. And they looked away from her because I think she's the smallest of the 3. She's quite petite, she's very small for her age. And they stuck the gun to her friend and it dislodged and she got shot in the ear. At this point, I wasn't...
went off?
Yeah, she was shot in the ear. That's why she was holding her
Like when you
ear.
say discharged.
Discharge, sorry, yeah.
No, that's fine. I know you're nervous about this, so just take it easy. You're nice and relaxed. I know, because you're reliving the moment.
Yes, yeah.
And you can feel her pain. I can feel it. And
fear and...
the trauma.
The trauma, and particularly considering what had happened on that road. Everything is going through your mind. And then also the fact that this wasn't my child, I was taking care of her. I was responsible for her safety. So
what they were saying to you is that the gun discharged and she literally got shot on the side of the head, on the ear.
Yeah.
By
4 boys.
4 boys.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God.
Once I was able to establish, I got them calmed, I brought her downstairs and I had asked her if I had an orphan for kids in my house. I asked her if she ever had it and she said she had, so I gave her some of that. The next thing I did then was I got straight on the phone to the Gardaí. Now I'm thinking I got through to a call centre because, they took the information, but I didn't feel like it was taken serious, and I think I was...
Was it 999 you rang?
No, I googled the Waterford Garda station.
Okay.
But the reason I think it was a call centre is I was explaining about the situation up in Carrickfergus, and the lady on the phone was kind of like, all right, can you spell that out? And what do you mean this
Sure it was the right number and all that?
Yeah, certain, because I had later on I rang it again.
Yeah, okay.
And so she logged it. And then the girls go to an after-schools activity on a Friday. So they were frightened at first. And I said, girls, I'll drive you. I always drive them anyways. And I said, we're going to be in the car. You're going to be safe, I promise you. So I got them into the car and I drove them to their activity. But as we were driving on the Carrickfergus Road, they said, that's it, that's the boys. They spotted them. So I dropped them at the activity and I looped around and drove back up. And as I was driving back up, they were sitting on an embankment directly outside the 8 to 8 shop. I saw the gun myself. Now, my thing was that the residents it was at my shore, so there was people passing by and they were holding the gun. I can visualise it now, I can describe it, I was a handgun, it was black, and they wouldn't have known that was an imitation firearm, and they had just been through a massive trauma. There's a play school up there, so I pulled in at the recycling bins and I rang back the same number, but I got through to somebody different, and I think I actually got through to the station this time. So I explained, and I was really animated at this stage. And I explained, I said, I can see them. They're 4 kids, they're right there. I'm looking directly at the gun. I can see it. Please send somebody out and take that weapon off of those children. And the response I got was, okay, we'll add it to your incident. Now, I drove back to my house and I kept an eye out, and the girls got picked up 45 minutes later. And I didn't see a squad car in those 45 minutes. Now, whether there was one or not, I don't know. But I certainly didn't see one.
That's horrendous. Anne, what do you think of all this?
Pretty much the same situation. My child came home from school. The front door is slammed shut and he just started screaming. Tried to get him to calm down. At this point I could see a swelling on the side of his head. Tried to get him to calm down, to tell me what had happened. Eventually got the story out that they were approached by these kids. The other little girl got shot. They shot his iPhone out of his hand. It was completely smashed, and then they shot him in the side of the head.
Sorry, they shot?
They shot him in the side of the head.
It looks like the temple.
Right on his temple.
So what do you mean they shot the phone out of his hand? They pointed the gun.
They pointed the gun
at his hand where he was holding his phone.
Yeah.
And pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
And shot the phone out of his hand.
Yeah, completely smashed on the ground. The phone screen was completely smashed. And then...
How old is your little boy?
He's 11.
11.
Yeah.
And was this the same day or a different day?
Yeah, no,
the 3 of them were together, I think.
They walk home together all the time.
Best little friends.
Yeah, they're lovely.
They really
kids,
are.
Yeah.
And what was he saying? What like it must have been horrendous.
He was petrified. He couldn't get words out. He wasn't making sense. He was more concerned about the girls because obviously the other little girl was shot in the ear. He didn't know what to do. Eventually I calmed him down and then tried to figure out what I needed to do. I needed to make sure that he was okay. And then called the guards, explained the situation to the guards. they said that they'd send somebody up, but that I needed to go and get him checked because he was shot in the head. So they advised me to wait at home for the guards to arrive, that they'd be there, that they were on the way. And 25 minutes had passed. There was no sign of any guards. So I rang back and I said, look, I need to bring him to the hospital. I need to get him checked. So drove to the hospital, passed the children on the way to the hospital. There was no guard presence whatsoever. This was half an hour, 45 minutes later. These children were walking down Graystew Road with the firearm, like as if nothing had happened.
4 boys?
4 boys.
Aging from what age?
I'm saying 11 to 13, that's what I
11
saw.
to 13.
Okay. Yeah.
And what happened when you went to the hospital was, did they checked out your little boy, and how was he?
He's okay.
Physically okay, but
physically
mentally?
Okay. Mentally traumatised. It's going to take a long time for him to get over this. Like, he was aware of the shooting that happened just after Christmas. So to have that image in his head of his friend being shot, of him being shot, it's going to take an awful long time for him to get over this.
I'll talk to you in a minute about what's happened since in terms of the guards and stuff like that. Jim Griffin, Jim, you were a Fianna Fáil a Sinn Féin councillor. But you've, apart from your council work, I know you do a lot of work on the ground with people, particularly around the Carrickfearish area, and you've worked with them over the last few years. What do you think of this?
Oh, this was shocking, Damien. When I heard about it, I went through David Cullinan's office, and I would say I was on scene probably within about 10 minutes. But I had missed the girls because obviously they were gone to the hospital. But myself and Councillor Joe Kelly, have been raising issues as far back as a year and a half to 2 years ago about this particular area, Carrickfearish and Mount Shore and Woodbrook. While the girl said it's a beautiful estate and it is in the outskirts of the suburbs of Waterford, but the amount of antisocial behaviour as of late has escalated. And, you know, that shooting 6 weeks ago that the girls explained there now, I can only imagine how traumatised their children should be.
What do we understand? Was it a pellet gun or what?
I would imagine, yeah, talking about the injuries to their kids, that there was no skin physically broken. It must have been a pellet gun, whether it was a lead pellet or a plastic pellet, I'm not sure. I'm sure the Gardaí will have to confirm that.
Yeah, you live out in Ballymacaw, you know, you'd see lads, you know lads about going hunting and stuff like that. Like, pellet gun can be very, very sore. It can be, but like if you got a pellet into the eye, it could. You'd lose your sight forever.
And depending on the type of gun, Damien, you know, I see people coming out and they're part of clubs that use target practice, and some of those guns can be kind of pump action. They'd have a gas cylinder in them to increase the velocity, and it definitely hit in the eye or hit in the ear. It could have detrimental consequences for a child at that age.
What do you understand has happened since? Have the guards... Did you talk to the guards?
I've spoken to the Gardaí, yes, and I'm pretty sure in the near future we'd probably have a major public meeting up in the area with the residents, probably of Ardcloone and Mount Shore again. Now, we only had one back as far as 8 weeks ago, just 2 weeks prior to the shooting, and we had great involvement with the community Gardaí in there, and they told us that they'd up the ante on the amount of presence they have in there, and they have had extra presence there. But I think now we need joined up thinking for more than just the Gardaí.
What happened? Did they take the gun from the young lads?
Up to this present moment in time, I haven't had a statement or a call from the Gardaí to say that firearm is recovered yet. I can't confirm that yet.
What have you been told? Did the guards come and talk to you, ladies?
No, I hear different things like that. I mean, you hear from one person that there was I heard, oh, the guards went down to the site, but then I also heard, no, that, like yourself, no one has had a follow-up, so no one seems to know the answer.
Have the guards come to your house, Mary, and said, what happened, and let's take a statement? Have they contacted you back to say,
No.
They haven't?
No.
Not once?
No.
What about yourself, Anne?
I was in contact with the Gardaí last night. The sergeant rang me. I was told in the hospital when I met the Gardaí on Friday that I'd have a follow-up call Saturday morning. I got no phone call Saturday morning, and it was around 8 o'clock last night that the sergeant rang me. He did apologise that no one was in contact with me, but the information that he gave me was that 2 firearms were taken off 2 different children. And my son has to go in and make a statement this evening to the Gardaí. So that's all I know at the moment.
Mary?
No, haven't heard anything back, and I don't think, in my opinion, it seemed to be very urgent when I was talking to either the call centre and the local station. They didn't seem to take it serious at all. I kind of felt like I was taking this more serious than they were. So maybe because my child didn't have any physical injuries, I wasn't a priority, and I understand that. But mentally, she's there at home talking to me saying, "But Mum, what did I do wrong? Like, why did they come for me?" And I think what she's dealing with is, you know, she doesn't feel like she doesn't feel like she protected them. You know, for her, she said to me, "I just wanted to keep screaming. I thought that if I screamed loud enough, a grown-up would stop." Now, I don't know if there was any adults there at the time, but I'm going to imagine she meant the cars, and she wouldn't be the kind of kid that would put 2 and 2 together and think the cars can't hear you. But I think she's taken it like, you know, she feels it's sort of unfair that they got injured and she didn't. But I'm trying to just reinforce to her, you know, you did the right thing, you know.
Stay with us for a second. We'll be back with more. A lot of texts and comments coming in. Mary and Anne and Jim Griffin. Jim, what's to be done about this, do you think?
Well, like I said, Damien, we need more joined up thinking, whether it's the outreach workers or the social workers and the Gardaí and Waterford City Council.
Like these young lads, young lads between the age of 11 and 13 don't go buying guns on their own. Somebody must have given them a pellet gun, and possibly 2 guns, as we've heard from Anne there, you know?
Yeah, and you see, Damien, Mountshore and Carrickferris Road, it's a lovely suburb of Waterford, but it seems to be forgotten since the downturn in the economy since 2010. And when you drive along that road, you have abandoned cars, you have horses, and then you get people coming in fly tipping. And I know from talking to the residents up there on a weekly basis that these groups of youngsters that are congregating are not from the Mountshore or Clune area. The Gardaí know that, so we need to find out why those kids target this area and hang around in the night time, and what's not in their area that bring them up to this area that they want to cause this antisocial behaviour.
How will this affect you now, Mary? Like, what will you have to do? Is it possible that you'll have to... Like, your children must be worried about coming home from school, walking... I know we're on midterm break now this week, aren't we? But
they're still in school.
Still in school.
She's just terrified, you know, and I think, you know, she loves walking home from school. And one of the things she loves, she's a real social little butterfly. She loves talking to the lollipop lady. And for me, she doesn't want to walk home on her own, but one thing she said was she's going to really miss me, and how will I, you know, she's so innocent, you know, and she can't walk home, she can't go to school. And for me, I want her to be healthy, you know, and I don't want to be that parent that lives within a 5-minute drive from the school and I'm seen getting in my car and having to drop her and collect her just to protect her. She should be able to walk home like every other kid in this country, but she can't, based on the situation that's up there, you know. She's frightened. She's frightened, she's confused, she's scared, and like the other lady said, she's aware of the shooting that happened, you know, and I think she got to see, you know, what was going on rather than have any physical injuries. So she is visual and she's replaying it, and she knows what a gun is. Yeah. You know, she saw her 2 friends getting shot, and she's only 11, and that's, whether it was a pellet gun or a real gun, it shouldn't have happened. Like,
a pellet gun is a gun, it's a firearm, like, you know what I mean? It's
and I seen it myself when I reported it. It was a handheld black gun, what you would see in, you know, when you think of gangland shootings, and the fact that it was placed at a child's temple, it's just not, you can't even think about it. Like, I physically unwell even myself, and she's only 11, trying to make sense of that. And
this idea that some parents must know their children are doing this, and if they don't know, they should know. And how did they get the guns? And what are they doing about it? And some people, like, there's people out there listening to this that know who's involved.
Yeah, I said that exactly. You know, I was told by one person, well, there's nothing we can do because these people are under 18. And I responded, well, go to their parents. You know, if it was my child, I certainly would need to know that this is going on. But because they're under 18, nothing's going to be carpet swept again. You know, I just feel that it's not fair. You know,
you see, Damien, like, you'd often hear parents and they're trying their best to deal with their teenagers, and when teenagers turn 14 or 15 now, they're very independent and it's hard to know where they are. But today we're talking about kids that had a gun that were no older than 11. Now, if their parents didn't know where they were and how they got that gun, it's a sorry state of a place that we're living in.
And this was the middle of the day?
Middle of the day.
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the day.
It was, yeah, I dropped the girls to their after school activity at 3:05. I was aware we were 5 minutes late, so it was 3:05 when I saw them on that road with the gun.
And again, this idea, Anne, of somebody pointing a gun at somebody's head, and like, they've seen this somewhere, they've heard about this, they've watched movies, do you know what I mean? They don't... What do you think about all this?
They seem to know what they're doing. They think they're cool, they think they're fun. Like... It just has a horrible effect on everyone. Like, it's traumatising. Like, the kids are not going to get over it for a very long time.
You're not going to get over it either.
No.
I can see it in you.
No. It's just like thinking back on it and replaying it, and it's like why my kid should have his independence. He should be allowed to walk home from school in safety, knowing that a gun isn't going to be pointed at his face. Like,
and even at that, what I would like, and I know the 2 girls feel the same way. They want something done, and that was even like on that day at 11 years of age. Once I had reported it, they kept saying to me, "What's going to happen next?" Yeah. You know, they want a resolution. Like, they want something to be done, and they're only 11. They know what happened is wrong, and they know right from wrong, and they know if you do wrong, there's consequences. So I want to be able to say to them 2 little girls, you know, look, that was a terrible thing that happened, but the bad people, they're being dealt with.
And is your friends, your daughter's friend's mother or father, are they going to issue a statement as well, or make a statement? Will the little girl make a statement?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, something has to be done. As you say, you'll be working closely with the guards on this.
Yes,
and also,
Damien, I raised it at last night's monthly meeting, the Metropolitan meeting, and I know for a fact I'll have the support of the 16 councillors in Waterford City Council on board to join up the dots and to make sure that there's action taken in this area.
Because it's across, the people talk about different types of, I suppose, approaches to this. You've got education, you've got security, you've got criminality, you've got antisocial behaviour, you've got the environment in terms of cars burnt out or left alone, and horses. All those different things come into it. It has to be a multifaceted approach.
Yes, and that's why I raised it at the council, because that's the type of action we need, a joined up approach to this. It can't be just done by one particular body of persons.
Listen, well done. Thanks very much, Mary and Anne. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Heart goes out to you. Don't know what to say.
I think it's just as well the idea that they're planning to extend the Halton site up there. You know, people need to hear the likes of, you know, myself and that other lady who, you know, you're saying about the different types of approach. I'm always saying it's well and good having all these representatives and bodies sitting down and making decisions about how the situation is up on Carrickferris, but where are the people from ourselves that live there, you know, from both communities? Why aren't we welcome at the table and here? Like, if I could say, look, your kids shouldn't be throwing stones at cars, your kids shouldn't be, you know, brandishing a firearm, you know, if you want to do that behaviour, you know, you're welcome to do it in your own home. But we all have to coexist and we all have to learn to live together. And that's all I want. And maybe it's well and good me saying it to a representative, but maybe it needs to be face to face. Maybe people have to understand people's different way of lives. And if they can sit down face to face, they can say, okay, maybe that is wrong. And maybe that's a way of educating somebody. And likewise, they could say similar things to me.
I hope your sons and daughters are going to be okay. Now, a lot of people responding to that interview. I am going to follow on with some of the texts in a little while. A lot of people saying, can the guards not be doing more? Others saying it's a pellet gun, it's not a real gun. That is true, and we said that in the interview. And yet, an 11-year-old doesn't know what a real gun is or a pellet gun is. And if you got a pellet in the eye, could blind you. Simple as that. Other people talking about the issues that are up there consistently. Other people talking about, is there a representative from the halting side to talk to people there in terms of any of the issues that can be worked out? Because Joe Kelly has been on to us as well, the councillor, saying there's a major community initiative starting Carrickfearish, led by the Children's Group Link, to work with young people in the area. I'm coordinating between Group Link and the communities along the Carrickfearish Road. At this point, training has been done since September, and the volunteers are now fully trained, so they hope to get things a lot better. Damien, very annoyed about kids being bullied and intimidated. What parent in their right mind would buy a pellet gun and leave their children run wild with a pellet gun? Shame on parents, no control over them. It's lucky there wasn't anybody seriously injured. Other people again asking about, can the guards not do more? Other people saying, is it an issue with the halting site, and could they have got the pellet gun from somebody there? And also Dogs Loose, other people saying Jim Griffin is doing very, very good work there. Kind of leads me on nicely to our next topic. Tammy, good morning.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Tammy Darcy from the Shona project, celebrating women from all over the world on being kind. One of the issues we cover there, I suppose, is bullying and children bullying other children, whether it's different formats that it can take. Like having a pellet gun is an extreme. Bullying can take lots of different formats. Just remind people a little bit about the Shona project. What is the Shona project?
So we're a non-profit that were formed in 2017, and really the bones of what we do is about kindness, but we try and just support teenage girls through the challenges of just being a teenager in Ireland today. Lots of different challenges, but really kindness is the most important message that we try to promote.
And how do you get your message out there? You do kind of conferences or day events and workshops, and what do you do?
So we do school visits all over Ireland. We've worked with 10,000 students in schools to date. We have done, last year we had a very big conference in the arena here. We brought 1,000 girls to that, and we're doing that in Limerick, Galway, Donegal and Waterford this year, so we'll have about 4,000. We created resources which are distributed to schools. So we wrote a little book that was given to 30,000 first years this year in around October. And we promote through our social media. We've got a really good team of young ambassadors, some of which you know, who are young girls, again, from all over Ireland, who write for us and help us to get our message out. And
you're effectively focusing on girls. Why just girls? Just specifically on that?
Well, look, there's no doubt that all teenagers are struggling at the moment, and there is a mental health epidemic that's quite frightening. I think with girls, their experiences are quite different in terms of, if you think of the messages that they get from society about what it means to be a girl, what expectations are on them, how they interact with each other, how they treat each other, you know, their experiences are quite different. And me being a girl, and I've had my own experiences, I felt that this is where I could add value. We hope that at some stage we can expand out and get other resources to work with the boys as well, because they definitely do need something. But this is just where I feel that I can create a difference.
And if anybody wants to text in, please do 083 3333 975. You can call Audrey on 051 846 123. If you were to talk to Caroline Flack before last weekend, I presume you'd be able to talk to her about the issues you've just mentioned.
Well, I think a lot of us can identify on you know, some sort of level with the experience that she's had and the negativity that she's had, and probably the self-doubt that she had. I think the most important thing that we all need to recognise is that we've all made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And I think that for anyone who's made a mistake and been trying to find a way out of it, it's really, really overwhelming, and the future just seems so far away. And the future is a different place, and it can look so much different from you. And it's really, really hard to find positives in those negative situations. But there's always positives to come out of it. So I think to have had a bit more forgiveness and to have a bit more understanding might have been really, really important. A little bit less judgment, a lot less judgment would have been very important. But my understanding is that she was surrounded by good people. She seemed to have a really good circle of friends, and she seemed to have had support, but she just did not see any other option.
And for people that don't know, Caroline Flack, a well-known television presenter who took her own life last weekend, and there's been so much reaction to this. It's easy to make suppositions, and it's easy to assume we know what happened. We don't know. No. We don't know what happened when it goes through somebody's mind. And we'll be giving out the number for the Samaritans and also your own contact details in terms of people who want to get in touch regarding this, because it's a difficult subject to talk about sometimes. Part of the reason you set up the Shona project was to make topics like this accessible, that it shouldn't be difficult to talk about. What reaction has there been, for example, since Caroline Flack's death? Do you think people are purposely cruel sometimes, or where does nastiness come from?
I've been really shocked by the amount of nastiness that I've seen. Like we've been trying to talk about it ourselves through our social media, and we've been trying to encourage conversation about it and trying to push the Be Kind message as much as we could. I think this is really hard for young people to digest, and the type of people that we work with, it's really hard for them to digest, because we look to people like Caroline Flack to give us hope and to give us, to teach us and to learn from them. And I think it could have been very, very different if we had supported Caroline Flack to make a change. So, to give you an example, I watched James Leonard being interviewed on the Tommy Tiernan show recently, and he was a person who had made huge amount of mistakes. He was a heroin addict. He'd been involved in crime, and he was lucky enough to get an opportunity to get back on track. And now he has a master's in criminology, and he works with addicts and he works with homeless people, and he's able to create a change. That story gave me hope and inspired me to keep working and to do better. Caroline Flack's story made me feel completely hopeless. And, it's both were stories of people who'd hit rock bottom. And I know that the instances, the mistakes that I've made, the challenges that I have given me all the things that I think are the strengths that I now have come from mistakes and tough times.
Because some listeners listening to this might say, Caroline Flack, sure, what's she's got to do with WLR, right? What's she got to do with people listening this morning? The reason we're covering this, and we covered it briefly yesterday as well, is that for her demographic and for her audience, she would have been presenting Love Island. Some people might know it, some people wouldn't. A lot of 15, 16 to 35-year-old girls and boys would be watching that programme. And they may have been following her story online and through maybe some of the papers that she had been accused of beating up her former boyfriend. And they might be affected by that because social media tries to create this connection, this false connection between people. So they kind of think, I know Caroline Flack, I know what she's been going through. And you've never met the person, you're never going to meet them. And it creates this dynamic, which as human beings, we're still trying to work out. You're probably trying to work it out every day.
Yeah, I think that the thing with social media is, and we know it shows people's highlights of people's lives. You can see what somebody had for breakfast. You can see, what somebody decides to wear, where they go, how they spend their days. But none of us saw what happened in that instance with her boyfriend. None of us saw it. So you're trying to make an assumption of what you see of that person. And either say, I always knew, I never liked her, or I loved her, she would never do such a thing. But none of us will ever know. So I think this is why it feels so personal to so many young people, because they do feel like they had a relationship with her. And, we've also talked on our website before about grief, that one of the confusing things about grief is you can grieve for somebody you didn't know that well, but it becomes all the more confusing, because you're wondering why you feel grief or why you feel sorrow. I was devastated. I was devastated to see it. I just thought it was one of the saddest things I've seen in so long. She was the same age as me, and I would have grown up watching her on TV too, so I felt the same way. But I think this relationships that we have with social media can be quite harmful, because a lot of young teenagers just take it as face value and they don't critically analyse the messages that they're getting.
Because within this, again, God forbid, somebody might consider self-harming because of what they perceive Caroline Flack was going through, and said, well, I can feel the same. And also then this idea that if she's been celebrated, and glorified's the wrong word, but her life has been celebrated, and they think, well, I can get a sort of a celebration. Copycat's the wrong word, and I hate that phrase, but you do get this feeling sometimes that people, that they have that connection and somebody does something horrendous and there's a sadness about it. And they kind of say, right, how am I going to react to that? And people react in different ways. And the social media, ideally what people should be doing is they should be talking to their families, talking to their friends.
Yeah.
Literally verbalising it, doing as we're doing now, meeting, having a cup of tea, chatting, having a talk, instead of going online. There's only so much you can do online, isn't there?
There has to be learning from this. It's an opportunity to learn. And one of the posts that we put out over the weekend is Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, Amy Winehouse. We've had so many opportunities to learn from these situations and we haven't. You know, and being kind is the most basic thing. Why are we not grasping it? You know, we've learned how to, all this technology that we've created. And the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is just to be kind to other people and not to judge other people and to take learning from those situations.
Yeah.
Why can't we get the hang of that? And even, you know, the comments that have been put up online, nothing good has come from this situation. You know, her boyfriend is suffering, her family are suffering, her fans are suffering. Couldn't something positive have come from this that we all might have learned from, made us feel better? Because a lot of what, you know, we're getting back on social media is messages from girls that are saying she had money, she had fame, she had support, she had access to supports that a lot of young girls don't have access to. So if she couldn't solve that problem, how are we supposed to solve it? Which is so worrying that they can take it from what they've seen, you know.
At the minute, I don't think there's any answers. I'm not going to be able to say, yeah, this is what we should do. How do people get in touch with the Shona project?
So our website is shona.ie.
SHONA.
SHONA. We're on social media. We're sharing. We're trying to promote these conversations online and promote, you know, positivity and promote that the people that follow us reach out to each other and maybe check in on friends that they might be a bit worried about or that they might feel have isolated themselves, and hopefully some goodness can come from this situation and this conversation. And
most of the schools, a lot of schools in Waterford would have your booklet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, if you have a daughter at school, she might be going to be off this week. Ask her, has she got the booklet? Have a look at it, show it, and have a look at it and read it and discuss it.
You can order single copies of the booklet on our website, but we've given them out free to nearly all the schools in Waterford at this stage, and there's an online version of it too. So excellent. Conversations, that's the most important thing. And anybody affected by this, Samaritans have a very, very good service, 24-hour service. Numbers 116 123 116 123. Tammy, thanks very much. You're welcome.
And
thanks for having me.
Continue good work.
Thank you.
You know, it's like something that once you're there, kind of people think, why wasn't this here before? Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of, even though you're only a few years going, it's kind of been accepted now as a very strong pillar within the lives of a lot of young women. So thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you. Keep your texts and comments coming in 083 3333 975, or you can call Audrey on 051 846 123. A lot of people talking about the comments. So many bullies, nasty people around, especially on online. We're surrounded by nastiness. We should do exactly what Tammy is saying and try and basically be kind. Social media is the scourge of the modern era. If you're in the public eye, you need to be super thick-skinned to do that. Another person saying, we're all talking about Caroline Flack now, but give it a few weeks and all will be forgotten and the tabloids will be back to their usual behaviour of selling shite on celebrities. Yeah, good point. Yeah, but are we going to be still behaving in the same way? Like maybe some of us will be less inclined to make comments online. Tammy Darcy, thanks very much. Thank you. Now keep your texts and comments coming in. Too many texts and comments that I'm not going to get through them all in terms of the Carrickfearish thing. Damien, this is the same gang of youths who are running riot in the Carrickfearish area. They're pelting cars with objects every evening night. The Gardaí can only do so much. The blame lies with the parents of these teenagers who are roaming the area at all hours of night. And that's from the Mount Sure Residents Committee, one of the spokespersons there. Damien, I'm a resident of Mount Sure, was at the Bottle Bank at Carrickfearish Road last Saturday week when a group of teenagers aged between 12 and 15, when two of them just started to jump on the bonnet of my car. What kind of behaviour is that? What if that was an elderly person going to the Bottle Bank? I have two children who can't even walk to school in case they get picked on. Bullies. Damien, this is horrendous. If the guards don't do something about it, it is a scandal. Shame on the Gardaí. Can they not do some more? Is it a real gun or a pellet gun, says this other person. Damien, I can't really believe what I'm listening to here. This is unbelievable, and nothing being done about it. Damien, will people get away with things like this, just like regarding other attacks in the past? People talking about different ears in Carrickfergus, and people saying they want to get a community, and a really strong community up there, and talking about the horses on the roads and different things like that. But a lot of people saying that things have to be done and done right. Damien, regarding bullying has to stop. My daughter was bullied at school years ago. The school had to get on top of this, and kindness has to begin at school. I myself was bullied in work. I used to get sick every Sunday night at the thought of going to work on Monday. And more texts and comments. Also, if you've any questions for William from City Vets, he is going to be in studio just after 11 o'clock. William from City Vets, if you want to talk about anything that is tickling your fancy regarding pets at the present. I think one of the topics we're going to be discussing today is overweight pets, so particularly with overweight pets. Firstly, we're going to talk about breakfast. Have you had your breakfast yet? What do you have for breakfast? Well, the breakfast awards are out, and I'm going to talk to Tom Doorley about it. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Thank you for joining us, Tom. Food guru, food critic, restaurant critic. People know you very, very well around the country. What do you think of breakfast? Do you like breakfast?
I do. I have a confession to make, Damien, though, is that I don't actually eat breakfast very often, probably only once, twice a week, because I practice a thing called intermittent fasting.
Oh, yes.
But because of that, I see breakfast, when I do have it, as something to be celebrated, something to take trouble over. And it can be a most wonderful meal. But I think for most of us with our busy lives in the 21st century, it tends to be a very perfunctory meal. It tends to be eaten quickly or even on the hoof. And I don't think we give it, if you like, the respect that it deserves. I mean, they used to say, what was it, breakfast like a king, and so on during the day, where you actually reduce the amount that you eat,
yes,
so that you go to bed after a light supper. I think we should take it more seriously. And as I say, because I have it so rarely, maybe say once or twice in the week, I love it.
Just on that, on the intermittent fasting, how does that work? Is it a couple of days a week, or how does it work?
Well, some people practice it maybe 3 days a week. Some people do 5. I sometimes do the whole 7 days, to be quite honest. And essentially what it involves is what I would do, just to describe a typical day, is that I would take my evening meal, and people discuss what that's called, whether it's dinner, supper, tea, or whatever. Anyway, my evening meal I take between sort of 7 and half 8, maybe 9 o'clock at the latest. And then I won't eat anything at all, apart from I'll have tea and maybe some black coffee between then and, say, 1 or 1:30 the next day. So breakfast is not part of that scheme. And
I remember listening to an interview with Pierce Brosnan years ago, and he said he would only eat fruit before 12 o'clock in the day, and that's how he would have looked after himself.
Have our peculiarities.
Yes, idiosyncrasies. Yeah. Well, the best breakfast in Ireland has just been revealed as the 5-star hotel served at Loughearn Resort in Enniskillen, a lovely place in County Fermanagh.
Yeah.
This is the Georgina Campbell Irish Breakfast Awards. 8 businesses, B&Bs across the country are on Bakery and Bistro in Kilkenny, one of the winners. And food producer awards were made in 5 categories, and one of the winners was the Little Milk Company in Dungarvan.
Who make a lovely cheddar-style cheese, too.
They do. What the Georgina and her judges seem to imply, and we've got Jack and Tim McCarthy of McCarthy's and Canturk, winner of the best rasher, sausages and pudding. They're saying basically, obviously, as me mammy would say, everything in moderation. So if you have a nice fry one morning, you might only have it once a week. It's not going to kill you as such. What do you think makes a good breakfast? If you were going to go to a place and say, right, I'm going to have a good breakfast, a really a memorable breakfast, what would it entail?
Sure. Do you know, it varies according to my mood. And funnily enough, I I'm not a great believer in the notion of all things in moderation, because what I try to do most of the time is actually eat very low carb. So I would cut out sugar, pasta, rice, potatoes, etc., on a daily basis. It's not to say I don't have them at all. Obviously, I do when I'm in restaurants, and obviously I do when I'm treating myself. So I approach breakfast as, in certain circumstances, I think there is nothing as good as a warm, buttery croissant with extra butter and with homemade raspberry jam and with freshly ground coffee with hot milk in it. I think that is one of the great breakfasts. Now, the only problem is I won't keep going for very long. Whereas, if I have rashers, sausages, white and black pudding, scrambled egg, tomato, but no toast as a general rule, because I like to keep it low carb, that will set you up for the day, if not the week. And hunger doesn't strike for ages. But it depends on the mood. I would be much more likely to have that kind of breakfast fairly frequently, whereas my croissant orgy, if you want to call it that, would be something, that'd be kind of, I don't know, birthdays, Christmas, or just, we all have some of those weekends where you just say, to hell with it, I'm just going to indulge myself. And I think we should do that. I think it's healthy to occasionally, if you feel you've earned it, to say, I'm actually gonna really go for it and do something that is, as I say, indulgent,
Yes, yeah, lovely advice. Tom, we'll leave it there. Listen, lovely to talk to you. Mind yourself, and please call into us someday, and we'll have a good chat in the studio.
I will indeed, absolutely. Thanks.